Now, I guess right now we have listened to wonderful talks from our 6 distinguished speakers. I believe you have get all the informations and hints how to publish a paper. So now you may be able to go back to your room and start to write a paper to submit to our transactions and magazines. Do you get the idea? Now then you may have a chance to ask some questions to our speaker right now. So as Xin suggests, you should ask some questions to get this chance. Okay, so any questions? So please.
Yes, that's a great panel. I really enjoyed your comments. A question that you've hit on tangentially, but it's one theme that always comes up, especially at this conference, is the notion of interdisciplinary work, where let's say the evolutionary computational component is part of a larger puzzle and may not be the most important part. And the question a student or a researcher might ask is, to what extent will this interdisciplinary interaction affect the chances that I will have my article published in your journal? And what sort of policies do you have, or sort of intuition you have about publishing, interdisciplinary work where the results may be theoretically important in another discipline, where just the EC component is a contributor but not the major theme. Any?
Yeah. That's actually a good question, because this comes up occasionally where somebody will submit, for example, an applications paper, and they needed to do some optimization, and so they use a genetic algorithm, let's say, to search for some optimal solution. We will accept those kind of papers. However, the evolutionary computation component has to be a major part of the paper, not some secondary issue that you need an optimization technique, so you use some evolutionary algorithm. It's a very basic evolutionary algorithm. Because you have to consider, and this was something I mentioned in my talk about writing to your audience. What are my readers going to get out of your particular paper if the evolutionary algorithm you have in there is a simple genetic algorithm with binary encoding, one-point crossover, roulette wheel selection, and a very obvious trivial fitness function? My readers aren't going to get anything out of that. If there's something unusual about your evolutionary algorithm that you had to use to apply it to this particular problem, that's the sort of thing that's of real interest to my readers. So if you've got an interdisciplinary type of work, and you're going to submit it to the Transactions in Evolutionary Computation, you need to make sure that the EC component of it is a major part of the paper. And that way it'll have something of real interest to my readers.
So any more questions? By the way, when you ask a question, please mention whether you want to ask a particular speaker or you want comments from all the speakers. More questions?
This is open to all the panel. Do you have any comments on the pros and cons of open access publications?
Well, I think there's at least one very good advantage of open access is your paper get read by more people. I always think it very positively in terms of open access.
Yeah, I think one thing worth mentioning with the IEEE publication policy, authors are actually allowed to archive the author file version of papers on their websites. You just allowed to do that anyway, but there's still definitely a benefit if you have the funds available of actually paying the open access charge, because then it's more conveniently available, more prominently available to your readership. So this is something I think we should emphasize more when they're going to explore, which is probably the #1 way they're going to find your paper. If they don't have full access to explore, but your paper sticks out as being one of the open access ones, then it's just probably, you just up the probability that they're going to read it and then cite it. So there are definite advantages to doing this. One other thing worth mentioning, I'm not sure what the situation is like in other countries, but in the UK, we have Research Council funds available to actually pay the open access charges, and so as an author, you don't pay anything. It just comes out of a central fund that gets allocated to your university. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Any more questions? I have a question to Chen-Teng about the magazine. What is the main difference between an article for the transactions and for the magazine? You said something about the application oriented and so on, but I think the style probably is different and the audience is broader and so on. So could you say something more about the difference?
Thanks, Pablo. I think that's a good question. I think for the magazine, besides the application-oriented articles, like other articles would be like, for example, as mentioned by Robert, that we are looking for articles that actually have a cross-disciplinary topics. For example, if you have applied evolutionary computation and fuzzy logic technologies into a particular application, so maybe wondering whether you should submit to the transitions of fuzzy logic, fuzzy systems, or the transitions of evolutionary computation. But naturally, you can submit this particular article to the magazine. So another thing is that for the magazine, we are not looking at very theoretical style article focusing on a particular topic, for example, in evolutionary computation, because the magazine is actually available to all members who may be in other field of the research topic, like in fuzzy logic systems. So those are very specialized articles may not be suitable or widely understood by all the members in our society. Does that answer your questions? Thanks.
Any more questions?
This is the question to the panel here. So I think it is common for us to, like in research, we want our own method to be the best, or at least is highly competitive to other methods. But usually it's not the case. So, for example, if I just come across with a new idea, might be a novel idea, and I believe that it can be very, very good in the future. But according to the current situation, according to the current experimental result, that it might not be very competitive to the current methods. But should I write a paper now, or should I, work more until I get a very good result then I can write a paper? Because I find that as a student, I may have some other issue to worry about, like I'm not going to graduate or something else, that I may not have plenty of time to work on the methods. So I don't know whether you have some recommendations on it. Thank you.
So which speaker do you want to comment?
Any else? No. who you should have some recommendations?
I'm quite happy to take this one. So it sounds like you said you might want to get a paper out, but the results are not yet very significant. I think it's going to be tough to publish it in one of our transactions. I think in order to do that, you've got to have some significant results.
If you go back and you remember some of the stuff that I said in mine, where on the background research, you have to put your paper in context. You need to show that the following people have done work in a similar area that preceded mine, and here's how my work fits in with their particular work. Now, if you think about that, if your results are mediocre or are not as good as other people's, then your work put in perspective of other people's work doesn't stand out, to which you then have to really ask the question, what is the significance of my paper? Why am I publishing it? How is somebody going to use my results when, if you look at it in context with similar work, it comes up wanting?
Maybe there's something that I can add to that. When you analyze the quality of the results, it's a multi-objective thing. And so it may be that your method is not the most accurate, but maybe it's the best in some other way. Maybe it's the fastest, maybe it's the simplest, maybe it's the most general. So that there may be some case you can make, but it's got to be, it's got to be significant in some way.
Any more questions? Okay. Okay, what more questions?
So first, thank you for your excellent presentations on how to publish our research in the top journals. And I have a question about the importance of the different parts of a paper. So which one do you think can contribute more to an excellent paper? The first one is a very elaborated, describe the algorithm in detail. And the second point is a very careful discussion on why the algorithm is better than others. So my question is to the panel. So can you tell me which one you consider is better to contribute to a good paper? Because sometimes the page is limited in, you cannot put everything in your paper. You have to make the paper concise. Thank you.
So which?
To the panel.
I can try in this case. I think both are leading. If you describe an idea without details, you won't be able to judge the idea. So you need to have a detailed description of the idea. And then once you have the idea related to the previous question, it's not so much better whether your result is the other one. I think we need to understand how much more understanding your paper provided, which is not currently available. Even come up, you might have a brilliant idea, that idea come up with a mediocre result. But if you come up with mathematical proof to say, well, now I understand why this idea is actually a lousy idea, and it can still be a very good paper. If you tell people something they did not know with the depth, that's good paper. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, I want to say some final words. This panel will not be succeed without the help of some people. First, I want to mention is Pablo, Dimitri, Stephen, and Kelly. So thank you much. So we about to close this panel. Thank you.